gentlemen, welcome back to the Israel Guys, where we believe in a world of anti-Israel propaganda. You should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Ari, Jeremy, Luke, great to have you back on the show. We are all together. It's been a while, but we've got a lot to talk about. Lots going on in Turkey, of all places.
We just mentioned that three of us were here on the last show.
Yeah.
But you were sick?
It's been a while.
Sick
for
is that
you,
what I was?
maybe.
Yeah. It's cleared up now. We're all good to go. We were on vacation last week. It's good to be back in the good land of Israel. We talking about that. I tell you what, the world is a really, there's parts of the world that are really turning into disgusting anti-Israel places. And even on a vacation, I'm walking down the streets and I'm seeing like this vile, just hatred of Israel. We'll show some pictures later on. Luke, we've got Turkey is wanting to get troops on the ground in Israel. We were at the airport. My brother was there. Took pictures of troops literally in uniform from, where was it?
Denmark.
They said it's Denmark, yeah. I don't know if that's verified or not, but we'll show a picture, though.
Arriving to Israel from countries all over the world. I've seen American troops in full gear walking through Jerusalem in mass. I mean, like 20 or 30 special ops guys in uniform just a few weeks ago.
In foreign uniforms. I've seen it when I'm driving out of our yeshuv, our settlement in Judea.
You've seen foreign troops?
I saw foreign troops in uniform. And I was like, what are they doing there in Kisan or in Rushaida? And the answer was they're protecting them and their olive harvesters from settlers. So what happens is they come and they're in their foreign uniforms, which should be totally illegal to have a foreign uniform on the ground in Israel, protecting these Arabs from settler violence as they're harvesting their olives, which never happens. Right. And then it doesn't happen. And they're like, well, mission accomplished, because it never happens anyways. They didn't do anything, but just having it's unsettling, and it's like, why are we allowing such a thing? It's just
the fact that so many different countries are all vying to get their troops into Israel under the banner, the Trump banner of the Board of Peace. That's what's so incredibly frightening, concerning. What's going on?
It's unbelievable because everyone was so excited when Trump was elected as president. Like, finally, we have a pro-Israel president. We can finally breathe. I don't remember a single time in our history where there were any foreign military in garb walking around in their uniform. That's never happened before. And it's as if prophecy is lining up, ready to take place.
Yeah, but when you say everybody was like, oh, great, I was not. I was advocating and even almost going door to door knocking for Kamala. Right? Not really. Of course, obviously not. No, but I actually thought it would be best for Israel if she were elected, because Israel, just from our very, particular stance, we only surrender land and we only do suicidal gestures to our jihadist enemies when we have a friend. We're much more susceptible and vulnerable to a friend than we are to an enemy. Under Obama, how much land did we give away? Under Bush, how much land did we give away? A lot more. And so when we have Trump in the White House, it's not his fault. I actually think he's been wonderful. It's our posture, our sort of vassal subjugated status in our own brains that makes us vulnerable to the predations of a friend, which not even predations. It's just them doing what's in their best interest and us allowing our own hand to twist ourselves behind our back.
Well, it looks like very soon we're not going to have friends on the left and on the right.
That's right.
That's what's happening right now. Israel will eventually stand alone, period.
Meanwhile, President Trump, as he leads the world in creating this board of peace, it reminds me of the prophecy in Jeremiah that says, they call out peace, peace, and there is no peace. A board of peace to send all these countries, and we don't know all the countries. Right now they're talking about Turkey needing to be on this. Turkey needing to be on the board of peace. Is that not the best person that we can think of to be on a board of peace?
All the countries that want to destroy Israel, we're letting their foreign soldiers into our land. It's absolutely insane.
Turkey hates Israel.
Yeah, can we get into this a little bit? Because and I'm definitely going to ask you about this, Ari, even though you said you're not ready to give your
before
analysis
we do that, can I just
Turkey.
ask you, what is the deal? Are you hearing unbelievable amounts of interference?
It's because it's raining like crazy outside.
That's what it sounds like, but why would that be picked up?
That's just the way it is.
I don't know if the audience will pick it up so much, but if you do hear the rain in the background, it's a very good thing. And it's actually Storm Byron, which you may have heard of, that's been sweeping across the Mediterranean.
By the way,
as we record in Israel.
To let you know, the rain in Israel has a very specific and special and spiritual, lofty, transcendent identity. It's different than rain in other places, right? What does it say? The land you are entering is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks from the water of heaven. A land that Hashem your God cares for. The eyes of Hashem are always upon it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Meaning other places, Egypt has the Nile and some sort of delusion or illusion of security and stability from this world. We don't have anything like that. We only have the rains of heaven. And so it reminds us here that our very existence lies in God's hands, and that we shouldn't get too lost in any of the things we're even discussing here with Turkey and this and that. We should really just have eyes to see what is Hashem doing to move the pieces around to further and bring redemption. That's what this is all about. Now we can jump back into the Matrix and talk about Turkey and get all flustered, but let's just remember from the rain.
And it is getting louder, and we are in a non-soundproofed studio, so you might hear the rain, but just enjoy it. It is a blessing in the land of Israel, and pray that it is a blessing because they are talking about flooding.
Hey, Luke, how about this? Join our end of the year fundraiser to help us get a better studio.
Yes, we are planning. Actually, we should tell everybody. We are planning to build an actual studio in 2026, which this show will be in. So, yes, we have a fundraiser starting next week. You guys can keep an eye out for that, and that will help build the new studio.
Hey, Luke, one thing before you get into this. We just got back off vacation, and I'm walking down the streets, and you guys got to look at this picture.
This first?
No, because it just sets
Don't worry,
the tone.
guys, we are getting into
No, it sets the tone for this whole idea of why we need to trust Turkey with the lives of Israelis. We need to trust, all these countries abroad. Greece is supposed to be a friend of Israel. We're about to celebrate Hanukkah. The friendship is very, I can't say, the history.
It's been a rough road.
Not so nice.
But contemporary modern Greeks are supposed to be very
pro-Israel.
Well, it's it's a popular vacation spot for Israelis. Not for you, I know, but for a lot of Israelis.
I did stop there on the way back. But you remember, I had to take a rickety boat for 27
let's just
hours.
Say it's very affordable, which is attractive for someone like me.
Here's what was appalling to me. In a so-called
We're talking about Crete,
friendly,
not even Greece, like the island of Crete.
Right. A so-called friendly country to Israel. And this graffiti is absolutely everywhere. If you don't believe me, I want to run through just a few pictures here of what I saw on the streets. Now, this was the most vile of them all. It says, why call it, and here's, look at this right here. Why call it tourist season if we can't shoot them with the crosshairs with the religious Jew in the crosshairs of the scope?
For those who may not understand what they're trying to say there in their own little witty Jew-hating genocidal way, is like hunting season. If we can't shoot them, they're saying, why is it tourist season if we can't shoot them? Meaning that they want to be able to shoot Jews.
In the
and
streets.
it starts with stuff like that, and it ends up with them actually shooting Jews. Meaning we're seeing in America now, because it's like the lobster in the water that's boiled slowly. Just yesterday, I think there were 3 vicious Jew-hating attacks against Jews in America. Miami, Brooklyn, different places, just Jews walking to synagogue being viciously attacked. And it's not even covered because it's not MAGA hats.
I've got death to the IDF, and that's spray painted everywhere.
Yeah, multiple places.
We've got, free Palestine, Israeli tourists not welcome. We've got, go home, unbelievable, and it's on every corner of everywhere. So that was a little hard for me to see on the streets.
Well, just free Palestine, free Gaza,
right.
Genocide. Israel's committing genocide.
But you said that the local Greeks that you spoke to were super pro-Israel and positive.
Right. So that was what was very interesting, because you have older people that seem to have some sort of connection. What I believe is happening
and the people
is
you talked to also said that they would get in big trouble. Right. If they stood up for Israel, or if they, got rid of the graffiti in any way. We even heard about someone who stood in front of one of the places where there was graffiti, and I don't know if he was making a video, but he's just protesting, just talking in support of Israel, and got arrested.
Right.
In Crete, on the island next to the synagogue. Now, the synagogue I went to visit. The only synagogue.
We also met the only Israel Guys fan in all of Crete, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
I think.
We
walked in. Why is the only Israel Guys fan?
Well, if there's any more, you guys can comment below.
I know of other Israel Guys fans in Crete.
You do?
Unless we're talking about the same guy. Who was it?
No, it was a lady.
It's a lady. Okay, there's 2.
Oh.
Okay.
There we go. All of the Israel Guys fans from Crete, please let us know.
Please let us know, and let us know what's going on in Crete with all of this unbelievable like graffiti everywhere. I'm not talking about just like one or two. Where's the mayor? Where's someone that's saying, hey, this is not a good idea? That's why I'm saying there's a concern.
Well, to me, it's also really symbolic. Meaning when I was in Crete, it was a few years ago, there was no graffiti. Obviously, the war is what created that. The immigration that's come to Crete is what's created that. Yeah. But as it's the kind of coming out against Israel, it's destroying what was a beautiful island. Yeah. So in some ways, it's just a symbolic reality of what happens when a country starts turning against Israel, allowing immigration. And that's the reality. Eventually, it corrodes the country from the inside and destroys what's beautiful.
Right. And that's exactly what my thought was when I was there. This is evil. And what good movement is thought to be, emphasized that it's good by graffiti? Graffiti is the antithesis of like a gang, street, evil, and that's where it's going to be represented. And so, it's hard for Israelis probably, and it's a popular Israeli destination. Like you said, this is new.
Becoming less popular now.
And as I was traveling back, I even asked some of the locals, do as many Israelis come here? And they were like, no. And then I'm going in the streets and I'm hearing Hebrew in the streets, and I'm going to the kosher restaurant and there's like 2 or 3, and there is some Israelis, but as I'm coming back into the airport, the good news of this thing is as I'm coming back to Israel, there's a massive aliyah. The Jewish folks are coming back to Israel, and that's what when I'm coming back in, there's this mass, probably, I don't know if there was 100 Jewish people from America. And what I got to say is that this graffiti in the streets, go to America, you see exactly the same writing on the streets in New York. You see exactly the same writing all over the EU. It's everywhere, the same styles, the same little writing, the same phrases, death to the IDF. You have these little stencil things. They must sell them online somewhere because they're all the same. Everywhere you go, it's the same stenciling.
The same fonts.
Same fonts.
Right. Same messages.
Same message everywhere.
Anyway, what's interesting, though, is every single person we talked to, we didn't find one anti-Israel person.
That's right.
So
what do you make of that?
It's interesting because every single person was like, oh yeah, that does not represent the people of Crete or of Greece. We're all very pro-Israel and stuff. I wouldn't say we met anybody who was super pro-Israel, except at the synagogue and the Israel Guys fan. But everybody was kind of like, oh yeah, we don't support that, but yeah, we can't do anything about it. This is the EU.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you could just picture one guy is very busy, doing a lot of spray painting, but that's really not the situation. It's really not. There was the mono tour.
It's a small island, yeah.
The Israeli mono tour lines filled with Israelis that doesn't want to go. Right. They were attacked by a huge group of Jew haters and Israel haters that were throwing rocks and metal bars at them. They weren't able to get off the ship. They needed to re-embark and they sent them somewhere else.
That's right.
Like, it's not just a little thing, because things like that happen. There was a 29 and a 30-year-old couple that was there that were attacked. So that happens like one-on-one, but we're talking about bigger issues. Like, there's an impulse in us to want to write it off and say, like, okay, it's just a small amount of people making a lot of noise. That's not what's happening.
I don't think it's a small amount of people. I think it's a different type of person. The immigrants that are flooding the European Union right now come predominantly from Africa and Arab countries, and they're using this Free Palestine movement to destroy the countries they're going into. Right. There are Christmas celebrations and Christmas markets in Europe now that literally look like security systems are being put up in barricades and blocks, and they're walking around with Palestinian flags, but they're destroying Christmas in Berlin. Why are they doing that? They're coming to destroy the West. They're coming to bring Islam to the rest of the world, because that's the tenet of what they're trying to do now.
But Westerners are complicit and cooperating with it with great joy, not against their will. Meaning, you go to these campuses where they're going to student. What do you think about Israel? Israel, Iran, who's the bad guy? Israel is genocidal. They should be wiped off the map. They don't have a right to exist. Meaning, in Europe, in the West, what I'm trying to say here is we could either be reactive to it, or we can have one moment of sober faith where we say, okay, God is running the show here. What is happening? Clearly, the hearts and the spirits of the nations are being churned in a way that is beyond nature. When did all of this actually really start to happen in a real way? Do you remember?
The genie was let out of the bottle on October 7th.
Okay, that's true. That the genie was let out of the bottle, that's true. But this latest round where things have gotten the craziest, when is that? I think it was since Israel attacked Iran, and the United States joined and attacked Iran.
Yep.
Do you remember that? During the last volley, when Israel didn't actually...
June of this year.
Yeah, when Trump told Israel, turn around, he said, I made them turn around. They were on the way to do the final knockout blow, and I stopped them, and Israel didn't do it, right? And Israel allowed that evil to continue to exist. I think that's when this huge tidal wave that we're in the midst of right now has really, been all-encompassing.
Well, these guys have been emboldened. You see it all across Europe right now. There's these Christmas parties you mentioned, Jeremy, are actually being canceled because they're saying it's not safe anymore. Across Europe, supposed to be Christian countries, supposed to be, accepting of freedom and all the values that we have. Islam is absolutely destroying, and like you said, they're winning this war against the Western civilization by just complicity. They're like, oh, well, what's the big deal? Why do we have to have the Christmas party anyway? It's dangerous. Mm-hmm. Just go to home and have your Christmas party, which, okay.
What they don't understand is it looks like they're attacking Israel while they're really attacking their own host countries.
Right. Right. And that's what we're seeing. And that's in mass, and that's all across Europe right now and across America. I'm sure there's isolated cases across America as well where we're seeing the rise of this Islamic power that's locking down these countries. Okay, so why is all this important as we're looking at the board of peace that Trump is putting in place here? I think that this is what the nations are. This is the war that they're fighting internally. So we're going to expect that these nations now are going to be the ones that are going to have the backbone to stand with Israel and to bring peace to the Middle East when they can't even fight it in their back, behind their own borders. Why in the world do we need to expect that these countries that are completely in line?
Can we talk about the countries that might be part of actually sending troops into Gaza?
Well, and why these countries, these are not even, maybe they're part of, some of these countries would be part of the EU probably, but some of these countries are absolutely in line with the ideology of destroying Israel.
Right. Well, I think it's important. Turkey is obviously a headline today. Syria, obviously a big headline as well, but that was covered yesterday on the Israel Guys. You can check out the video that Ben put out. But I want to talk about Turkey because they're kind of taking the spotlight at the moment, but it's part of this bigger plan for peace that Trump has. What do you call it? The board for peace, right? So they're talking about the International Stabilization Force being implemented in Gaza in early 2026, which is obviously weeks away. But Turkey is like one of the biggest countries that is ready to send troops on the ground into Gaza. And the Turkish security forces told media this Tuesday, we have no problem with the troops being sent to Gaza to join the ISF. The Americans also very much want us there, while Israel opposes it. The Americans are pressuring Israel to have Turkish troops as part of the force. This is what some people are saying. This is according to J-Post. Interestingly, because Turkey is part of NATO, and so it would make a lot of sense that Trump really wants Turkey to be in Gaza, right? Turkish security forces affirm that as a guarantor of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire and as a signatory to the peace process, they, quote, must be there. They said, our forces are ready. We've prepared all the necessary units. The moment the order is given, we will immediately form a modular unit. And then they went on to say, you cannot say the Turkish troops cannot come when it is clear that Turkey is one of the countries that worked the hardest to establish the ceasefire and coordinated the exchange of hostages for Palestinians detained in Israeli prisons. I don't remember that happening, Turkey being such a part of that. But they said, if you say Turkish troops cannot come, then you do not want this mission to succeed. You intend to continue to genocide. I think that's key. It's very clear Turkey is not pro-Israel. So I have no idea why Israel would let Turkish troops into Gaza.
Well, they're saying they're not going to.
Yeah, well, they're opposed to it. But the problem is Trump is pressuring Israel to do it. How long will Israel hold out against Trump? One more thing, I just want to quote this. This past Saturday, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan spoke to Reuters on the sidelines of the Doha Forum, saying that not advancing the U.S.-backed Gaza ceasefire plan to the next stage would be a, quote, huge failure for the world and Washington. and they said, quote, "First of all, we need to see that the Palestinian Committee of Technical People is taking over the administration of Gaza. Then we need to see that the police force is being formed to police Gaza, again, by the Palestinians, not Hamas." So we have this whole thing going on that's very crazy and very like pie in the sky. Basically, Trump, along with this whole board for peace and whoever's on the committee, you got Egypt, you have Turkey, Trump wants Saudi Arabia to be on this board, right? They're saying, okay, we're going to send this International Stabilization Force into Gaza, and then they're going to train up a technical Palestinian committee to take over the administration, and then we're going to separate the Israeli forces from Hamas, and then, this is the crazy part, according to The Guardian, they're saying Hamas is going to willingly hand over their weapons, not to Israel, not to the International Stabilization Force, ISF, or whatever, but to a Palestinian Authority type of group or committee.
How many times can we do that? Like, this is the exact repeat of everything that's been done by international leaders. What? Go back to 2005, go back to all of the disengagements, the whole story of Israel and the international, peace. Let's take the weapons and give them to the. I mean, it's like literally the West's idea of how to get control of the Middle East is to they're just using Israel just like they did in all the other countries around all the Arab countries that we fought. Let's empower this group of force, and then they become the enemy and fight it, and then they become the problem.
I always try to take responsibility for us rather than blame and to point fingers, to really own it. And I think a big part of this is the nation of Israel's love for life is so extreme and overwhelming that it's almost too much, that we have to be willing to sacrifice our lives for what is right and what is true. And when you look, if we're going to be honest about it, I just listened to Carlson's interview in Qatar, and the guy was saying, I don't understand what Israel's so upset about. They've been sending $150 million a month through Israel, for Qatar through Israel to Hamas, sometimes at Israel's request. This isn't just Benjamin Netanyahu. This is also Bennett.
If I remember correctly, we're talking about like suitcases of cash.
Suitcases of cash. And why is Israel sending this to Hamas? Because Israel just wants another day. We just want to breathe another day. Just want to develop and bring light and bring goodness. And so it's essentially hush money. And we think, the leftist government and authorities in Israel project out their own, materialistic tendencies and think that Hamas can be bought.
And at the same time, the Hamas is playing a long game. They were digging tunnels, slowly digging tunnels.
Taking the money, it's fine. The money, they'll get their quiet for now.
Buying more rockets, buying more weapons. And the same thing is happening right now. They're bringing these stabilization forces. In a long term, they're just building a military presence in Israel's land. What is going to be in a few years from now? It's unbelievable.
Well, I've had big concerns because I look back at history. We all know the history of Israel pretty well. You guys specifically, your families lived through it. You think about the so-called peacekeeping forces that have been throughout the histories here, or even the countries that came back in the day where they would want to come and establish some kind of hold here. Maybe at one moment they were pro-Israel for a second. It always turned. Every single time. And what makes us think even now that this so-called Trump peacekeeping force would somehow be pro-Israel? It's already very clear that they're anti-Israel from the get-go. But even if there's like a hope that maybe there could be some supportive of Israel in some kind of small way, it will never last.
I think the only chance that Israel has to survive in this part of the woods is when we bring God into the picture. Is we're doing some sort of separation of church and state where we remove God, we remove the Bible, we remove the right way to see Israel, then we're going to be making such strategic mistakes. And so right now, bringing in international forces into our land is the exact opposite of the vision that the prophets had. Actually, it's the vision of the prophets had of like a really terrible future for Israel. And it looks like we are like lining up for a disaster.
Right. We're approaching the holiday of Hanukkah. If there's anything that we learn from that holiday, I mean, talk about these priests, these untrained Jewish warrior priests that went against the largest empire in the entire world at the time and were able to win. What was their rallying cry? The first rallying cry Was it iron swords? Let us have a moment of peace? No, they said, Mila Hashem Elai. Yeah. Who is for the God of Israel? Come to me.
That's right.
Right? And that is, we don't need to be stronger, have more weapons. We need to be holier. We need to return to our essence. And that's what all of it, we say it again in one of the greatest repeating themes of this show, is all of this that's happening in the world is happening divinely orchestrated to bring us back to remember who we are. And when we remember who we are, then the world begins to remember who we are. And when we start shining that light, the world will be able to receive it and will bring a healing and a love. But we need to first put our faith where it belongs, which is not in an international peacekeeping force or appeasing Trump. And that's where the nation is, by the way. That's where the nation is. Because if you think about it, any Western country, if only people under the age of 24 in America could have voted in the last election, who would have been the president? Kamala Harris by a large margin.
Or Bernie Sanders. You know.
Yes, right. And it's that way throughout the entire West. That's right. The younger, the more leftist and liberal. In this country, if only the people by the age of 24, and I haven't looked up the statistics, but I heard this from a number of places, if only the younger people could vote, it would have been Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is proactively advocating for the construction of the temple.
That's right.
Right? Talk about it going, we're going in a very fundamentally different way. And the reason I say that is to show that there's a great discrepancy. The people around the world need to not make the fundamental error of looking at the Israeli government and thinking that that's a reflection of the people, because it's not. The nation of Israel has already begun to connect to Jerusalem and to David, their king, over Saul, meaning Saul is still there in office, but the nation's heart has departed from him.
I found this is so fascinating to me because we by accident, we're talking about Greece, and we're talking about global anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, and we're talking about Israel. And Hanukkah is literally next week. We're coming into Hanukkah, and that's the exact story of the Jewish people. Greek influence, Greek war, the war against Israel from thousands of years ago, and today we're fighting that exact same battle, that Hanukkah-like battle, where Israel is faced with the most extreme all nations, except it's even bigger now. I mean, the Greek Empire that came against Israel was massive, and it was the biggest force of the world power at that time. Today, we're seeing a joint attack against Israel right at the same time. And it's supposed to be, this peacekeeping force. It just sounds so biblical, Jeremy. It really seems.
Peacekeeping force sounds so biblical?
Yeah. Like it seems like it's like.
You're saying in a bad way, right?
I mean, is it bad?
I mean, everything that's happening is a part of the plan, but it definitely, we have two options. Either we can follow the path of righteousness, follow the path of God, follow the path of faith, or faith will be thrust upon us because we'll have no other option other than put our faith in God. And that's so right now, as we're inviting the nations into our borders in military uniform, we're just setting the stage for something disastrous to happen. But what I think is that we have to kind of look at the situation now and really understand the interests. If we understand that there are like forces that are at play now, because there is three real characters that are unfolding on a international level. One is Esav, one is Ishmael, and one is Jacob. And what are those three forces? One is what people would call the Western world, but I really want to define that because even within the Western world, there's a battle of who they are. Are they Esav? Are they Jacob? What are they going to side with? But we can really define it as the Catholic Church, the European Union, because what's really interesting is whatever the European Union's policy is, the Catholic Church comes up right behind it and backs always the leaders of the European Union. And that's really interesting because the European Union, they're not elected by anyone. There's some sort of like, I don't know, the people that have controlled all of Europe somehow. There's no way to get them out of there. They're just sort of locked their position in power. And the Catholic Church is like lined up right behind them to
even
the point.
When it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Just now, I was just showing Luke, the Pope came out encouraging Muslim immigration into Europe and criticizing any Christians that oppose Muslim immigration. It's just unbelievable. So that is the force of Esav in the world. Then there's the force of Ishmael in the world, which is the Arab world. And there's the force of Jacob, which is the Jewish people. All of us now are battling over who is to inherit Abraham, because that really is. There's all, meaning China's not really a player in the game because they have no say in that covenant. They have no real claim as either Esav or Ishmael or Jacob. That's why they're sort of off to the side. But right now, the real battle, and if we see the world, that's what the interests are. So Trump right now is aligning with Ishmael, and Ishmael is trying to come in and take away the land. And that's why it all boils down to who will inherit the land of Israel? And it comes down to something really simple. I mean, we just saw right before the show that as the farms are growing in the land of Israel, terrorism is going down in those regions.
We'll show that graphic on the screen.
It's unbelievable. You see every year the green is going up on that graph, the red is going down, the terrorism is going down as the farms are getting settled in the land. And that's really the spiritual mechanism. If we are able to go in and inherit the land of Israel, everything will fall into place. But that's really what this war is all about. So inviting foreign armies into the land is the last thing we should be doing.
I was just thinking about how Maccabean that is, Luke. What you just said is so Maccabean, and I don't want people to miss it. The biggest story unfolding in Israel, the biggest peace unfolding is farmers. It's so Maccabean. It's so the brothers, the Maccabeans, the father and the sons, Judah and his brothers. It's so the story that's unfolding right now. What is the whole world then fighting against? Jewish farmers in Judea and Samaria.
No, it's also really amazing. We're bringing these international forces with their military uniforms to come in peace. And what actually is bringing peace into the region? Just Jewish farmers settling the land. It's just proof. There are statistics that are saying how many terror attacks happened in this region. And as the land continues to be settled by the Jews, the terrorism goes down. Yeah. We don't need international forces. We just need more farmers.
Well, and just like Ari said just a minute ago, the international forces that are coming in, what are they coming in to do? They're coming in to be a front to the farmers, the shepherds on the Judean and Samaritan hills, just like the Maccabees were back then.
Right, and that's the thing. God says that he will use us to bring a light to the world, to be a testimony of his presence and orchestration of the world. If we don't do that through our own free will, then it will be done through us every single time. And that's if we're not inviting the nations of the world come and worship at the house of the God of Israel together, if we don't invite them on behalf of God, they will come as they're coming now as enemies.
It's even worse than that, Ari. We're inviting them in military uniform.
We're inviting them as enemies.
It's unbelievable.
Can I just say one thing, Luke, before we get to that topic, is that when I was flying into Israel from Greece, I felt that the tension of good versus evil. I felt the tension of a world moving away from God and a world of like evil, that Greece really represents that. I mean, historically, this was paganism. It was the idolatry and all of these evil things. I felt the disgust of the anti-God. And when I was flying into Israel, the holiness of the land of Israel was like a breath of fresh air. Even seeing the coastline of Israel to me was like, oh, there was a holiness here that was not in the nations. Flying, it was like a physical, like sweeping, like, whoa, there was a rest here. And the whole world, they know that. And I'm just telling you my feeling that was so real to me of like a refreshing, and even driving in the streets of Israel, there's a freedom. Driving in the streets of Greece was an oppressive, something that was like just depressing, and like maybe if you were an evil person, it was very fancy free for you. But for me, it was a tension. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you recognize that you are spiritually attuned. No, really, you are. You are. You feel the holiness and where
God
is
not here.
But it's important to say the word in Hebrew for Israel, for Zion, Tzion, is Tzadi Yud Vav Nun. Tzadi is the letter that represents constraint, right? Tzion is that the idea of constraint is that we as Jews, we believe that the purpose of this world is to elevate the soul over the body, not to deny the body, but to harness it and channel it for serving God's will. When you take that principle, that fundamental idea of suppressing the body's impulses to the spiritual, you take that Sadi out, you just have Yud Vav Nun, Yavan. You have Greece. Meaning they're the antithesis. That is their real hatred of us, is the deeper message that we are here to sanctify God's name in the world. And they want to just be slaves to the material physicality and the impulses of what they desire. That's the deepest ideological, philosophical challenge that started back then in the days of Hanukkah and continue until today.
You know what's so interesting about that? Hellenism, that was the Greek philosophy of out there. What is Hellenism today? It is wokeism. It's just taken a new form.
That's right.
But it's like the immediate gratification, do what you want, multiple gods, multiple truths, multiple genders. It is wokeism. Today is Hellenism. It is literally the same battle then is what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I never thought about that, but it's absolutely true, because that was the Hellenism 2,000 years ago was what, like, one of the biggest dangers in the land of Israel, and even drew away a lot of the Jewish people from the land of Israel, and from even those that were here, the Hellenistic Jews, drawing them away from the God of Israel as well.
One of the greatest ironies is that even the Hellenist Jews of America, and there are a lot of them, there's a lot of woke Jews in America, and a lot of the woke movement has been really pushed and advocated by some of these Jews who are, Jews are just like everybody else, but just even more so. Hanukkah is one of those holidays that even they light the candles.
Yeah.
If they only knew that they were lighting the candles because if we're going to be honest about what Hanukkah is, who was the first person, when you said Mila Hashem Elai, the first person that was killed was a Hellenist Jew that was offering a pig on the altar of the temple. And that's when the Maccabees said, enough is enough. This is the line. And a Jew killed a Jew. And that was how the holiday of Hanukkah started. Please God, it should never happen again. But
that's right. Well, just I want to wrap up a couple of things about this International Stabilization Force, because I think the next few months could be really, really interesting to watch, especially in Gaza, and as we see more and more foreign troops landing in Israel. Because we have Turkey now, this whole debate, and it's like Israel, U.S., Turkey, all in a fight to see if foreign Turkish troops can be sent to Gaza. The Turkish foreign minister interestingly said that the ISF should make, once they get to Gaza and they're on the ground, they should make it its top priority, not the disarmament of Hamas, but the separation of Israeli troops and Hamas, rather than the disarmament of Hamas.
That just means that Israel has to retreat. That means get the Jews out of Gaza.
No, exactly. And it's Israel surrendering. They're talking about how Hamas will only hand their weapons over to a Palestinian group because they don't want to hand them over to Israel or anybody else because that will be seen as surrender. I'm like, isn't that the whole point of this, that Hamas is surrendering? But the Turkish foreign minister said, quote, disarmament cannot be the first stage in this process. We need to proceed in the correct order and remain realistic. And then he added that their first goal should be to separate the Palestinians from the Israelis. Who cares about separating the Palestinian from the Israelis? How about Hamas surrendering and laying down their weapons? And then you have Egypt, who I think the Egyptian prime minister or president, whoever is on this board of peace, I think, if I'm correct. He says their foreign minister, Egypt's foreign minister said, quote, we need to deploy this force as soon as possible on the ground because one side, Israel, every day is violating the ceasefire, but claims the other side is responsible. So we need monitors along the yellow line in order to verify and monitor. And then he said the ISF should be peace monitoring, not peace enforcement. So I have this picture in my head, and I think it's interesting that we have this yellow line in Gaza because if you know about Judea and Samaria, or what the world knows as the West Bank, you know that they call it the green line, right? That separates. In 1967, they drew an armistice line, and for the last 50-something years, we have this imaginary green line that separates Judea and Samaria from Israel proper. Well, now there's a yellow line in Gaza. I would venture to say Israel is not retreating from that yellow line. Israel's going to hold the territory they have there.
Yeah, you think so? I think the fact that they call it a yellow line. Listen, I was born in Texas, 4th generation. When someone calls you yella, right?
True.
I mean, a yellow means like scared, cowardly, yellow-bellied sapsucker. That's what they would say in Houston. And now it's a yellow line. It's a good word for it. Because the very fact that we're even doing that we have a line that isn't on the Mediterranean,
right,
means that we're yella. That's what I say. I hope that's a YouTube short right there.
There you go. But we have this yellow line. Right now, the IDF's holding that. And then you have Hamas refusing to disarm, which was part of this whole peace plan that they are required to disarm, right? And then you have this imaginary, what do they call it? International Stabilization Force that's supposed to be descending on Gaza. Egypt, I heard Azerbaijan, who knows who else? All these foreign troops descending, and they're all debating, are we going to go in and monitor peace? Are we going to actually go into the tunnels and fight Hamas? Are we going to force Hamas to disarm? Are we going to help form a technical Palestinian committee? Are you picturing this right now?
Yeah.
IDF troops, Turkish troops, who, by the way, now the U.S. is talking about selling F-35s to Turkey, people who openly support Hamas, openly supported October 7th. Now they're going to be maybe the second country in the Middle East to get F-35s. They're going to have troops on the ground in Gaza. What is this going to look like for Israel? They're trying to hold this yellow line, foreign troops inside of Gaza, Hamas still roaming the streets and torturing and beating their own people and attacking Israel every single day. Obviously not. I mean, you're stupid if you think that there's any chance of Hamas handing over their weapons to anybody.
Get this. President Trump posted this. It says it will be one of the most legendary boards ever. Heads of the most important countries in the world, kings, heads of state, and presidents. They all want to be on the board of peace. So this board of peace, you hear what you're talking. The only thing they're talking about is Israel problem. Israel needs to do X, Y, and Z. They're not talking about the real problem. Hamas, terrorists. And that seems to me a bunch of really highly educated folks that are not so educated on the actual
I think that Trump may have good intentions here, but he's just totally misguided because the war isn't really against the Hamas. It's a spiritual war that Israel's in the middle of, and it's a war with the jihad. That's why if Hamas is going to pass over its weapons to another jihadist movement that is still committed to killing every Jew in the world and destroying Israel as a Jewish state, then of course they'll hand over their weapons to their partners in crime. And until we realize that, this is not a political war. It's not a war against a terror organization. It's against an ideology. It's against a spiritual movement. I mean, the word jihad means struggle. Mein Kampf literally is translated as my struggle. Every once in a while, there's just like a little hint that you can know that, they're using that language. This is a war for our survival.
That was a YouTube short.
That was amazing.
That's good. No, but it's important that you say it's just like the jihad, but when you said Mein Kampf, it's true. It's not just against Ishmael, it's against Esau. There's an alliance between Ishmael and Esau, the jihadist world and the Rome and the Crusades and the Inquisitions and the Holocausts, and they're both coming against Israel right now. And listen, we've talked about this before, but the entire premise of Jacob taking Esau's blessing is, why did Rebekah do that? Because she saw that Esau would not be able to elevate and sanctify the material world. Only Jacob would be able to do that. And so he needed to get that blessing. But what does Isaac say to him? He says that if your brother Jacob does not fulfill his role, you can throw off his yoke. If the entire premise is that we can sanctify the physical and material world, and then I look around the world and there's millions of Jews still in America, despite all the writing on the wall. Why are they still in America? Because they have their jobs and they have their homes and they have the materialism. Yeah. That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. Well, that means that they're not sanctifying the physical material world. They're slaves to it. And so the grievance of Esau and Ishmael is legitimate as long as we don't sanctify God's name by returning to his land, because as the prophets say, that the nations will say, how strong can be the God of Israel that his people is scattered around the world? That's a desecration of his name. And we'll only really merit his blessing when we leave the lands of the diaspora and come back to the land of Israel and shine the light of God to the world.
Last night, there must have been 100 Jewish people that were sanctifying God's name coming through the airport. When I was there, they're just Aliyah coming back to the land of Israel. We hope that there's a lot more to do it. Now, I have a big question. My question is, Trump is not a stupid person. Very brilliant, very smart person. Very, very brilliant.
Intuitive. I was about to say, I like how you said that.
Very brilliant.
The most brilliant.
The most. Why are we dealing with Turkey and Syria as this whole thing unfolds? Trump is pushing them. We all know that those two leaders are terrorists, are evil.
Turkey and Syria.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trump knows that. He's not blind to
one-word
facts.
answer.
What's that?
Ego.
You think?
Yeah, because Trump's he wants to go down in history for stopping the most wars and bringing the most peace as possible. Turkey, now they're trying to reverse this policy of not selling them F-35s, which, been going on for I don't know how many years. Syria has been a war-torn state for over a decade, right? I think Trump wants to see as many countries reverse whatever bloodshed and violence and policies have been going on and bring them into some kind of alliance with the U.S.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I think that he's a great salesman. Yep. And there is a sales tactic called assuming the sale. And he's like, oh, you're going to be on the board for peace. It's like he's assuming that, oh, now you'll be peaceful. And they're like, okay, we'll be on the board of peace. I can get my troops in the land of Israel and threaten the Jews. Excellent. Yeah, I'll be on the board of peace. While he's thinking if they assume the sale that, okay, they're going to be on the board of peace, that they'll actually become peaceful. And he just doesn't understand the Arab mind. He doesn't understand the Islamic mind. He doesn't understand the Middle East.
Well, if they're chanting in the streets, death to Israel still. I mean, does he not see the reality of what's on the ground and wants to put that force on the board of peace? The forces that are yelling death to the Jews? Like that, there's something that does not connect. That's footage that everybody can see. He's killing, the Syrians are killing the Christians, killing the Druze, killing all the minority groups. Right, they've done it all year.
What's unbelievable, it's like all terrorism in the world practically is Islamic, but there's not really an Islamic voice that's opposing the terrorism that condemned October 7th, not Syria and not Turkey. But what's happening is that the Western world that's sort of complicit in aligning with the Islamic Arab world, it's going to hit them measure for measure, exactly like what you saw in Greece. It is eventually eroding their own country, and it's going to destroy them from within.
Well, I saw that's happening in Iran right now. You saw there's massive civil distress there right now, like in the streets. Over the whole hijab deal. They're all going crazy.
They also have no water, like the whole country.
God has his ways.
Well, I don't know if you saw, I know we said we weren't going to do this, but if you saw the interview with Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes, right? And so Piers Morgan says...
What, you mean you said you weren't going to talk about Nick Fuentes?
Right. But it's really interesting because Piers Morgan said, you said in past things that blacks this and Jews that. Are you a racist, Nick Fuentes? He's like, yeah. I'm a racist, yeah. You said you thought Hitler's cool. He's like, yeah, I agree with me. I think Hitler's cool. And you know what? People loved that.
Oh, yeah.
They loved that. Why? Because we've gone through the world, and America leading this has gone through such a period where if you say a man is not a woman, then you are excommunicated and you lose your job and you can be thrown in prison. And now there's this equal and exact opposite revulsion to that, where people who actually say what they mean and mean what they say, it doesn't even matter if it's good or if it's bad. People just respect it. And so when you look at the Muslim world, they're speaking with a very distinct clarity. You know, the jihad, we will die for this. And then you're from Israel and they're like, yeah, we want some quiet, we want some peace, we want some, you know, and so although the message they're sharing is dark, nonetheless it's powerful. And only when Israel rises like a fierce lion for God with equal clarity and conviction and more, then that light will cast away all the darkness. We can't be fighting darkness with darkness all the time. We got to fight darkness with light. One little candle illuminates a whole room.
That's right.
Hanukkah.
Well, you know, I think we have a couple of minutes left. It's always good to end with some really positive stories. And there's a couple of really cool stories in the news this week. Just before we kind of get onto that, because this is also a positive story following up on the conversation about the European Union earlier. There's one country that stands out as a shining light.
That's right.
And that's Hungary, for failing to comply with European Union asylum laws over they refuse to implement the European Union policies regarding the treatment of asylum seekers and illegal migrants. Like basically they're like, no, we don't want jihadis in our country. And they've been fined 200 million euros initially and now €1 million every day for refusing to comply with that. And they're standing firm. They refuse to pay the fines. And now the EU is just saying, okay, we'll just withhold that amount of money from Hungary, which sounds like a big deal to me.
It is a big deal. They did it also from Poland for similar reasons. For not bringing in.
Though, Hungary is like a very godly nation. Like they are a very godly nation. So they're standing out as a very shining, bright light in the midst of the darkness.
Pastor Shandor Nemeth, right? Do you know him? Have you met him? He's one of these real voices of love of the land. This is before, like, when there was none others that I knew of. He really did a big job, a serious job there of going in and changing the heart of that nation to being much more godly and connected to Israel and the Jewish people. And I think that they're reaping the blessings of that right now.
Did you see that story this week of a October 7th terrorist that was walking the streets of Europe?
Oh, yeah, I've got a picture of him. We can put it up on the screen.
I'm like,
sitting in Belgium.
What?
Sitting in Belgium. Look,
you have a picture of him in Gaza?
Yeah, and then
look.
Yeah. Right here.
This is crazy. And now he's posing in Belgium in front of some kind of Christmas something or another, just walking free.
Well, I'm thinking,
looking happy.
I'm just reminding me of that That's not happening.
And there's no doubt about it. This is the same guy. I mean,
it's what you said over and over again, Jeremy.
Belgium was one of the countries that went to the International Criminal Court and was blaming Israel for fighting that terrorist. And now that terrist is walking around the streets of Belgium. It's just perfect measure for measure.
Remind me not to go to Belgium. Ari, I don't know if you have any comment about this, but a lot of people hear about the Haredi community protesting joining the IDF in Israel. I mean, there was hundreds of thousands, I think, that protested a few weeks ago. But this week, there's a beautiful video of the Haredi Hashmonaim Brigade. Very fitting, right, for this time.
Explain why.
Well, I want to let you explain it. But marching 50 kilometers in pouring down rain, ending at the Kotel, the Western Wall, with shouts of Am Yisrael Chai to finish their training of joining the IDF and receiving their berets.
It's very exciting. It's like just another one of the many glimpses. There's so much darkness in the world that you can hyper-focus on or just focus on that you sometimes miss these little glimpses of redemptive light that are shining through already from the future. And so to me, this is one of them. The Hashmonaim were the Maccabees. That's the story of the Maccabees.
That is the name, right?
Right.
That's how
and
Maccabees
so when you
translate.
see these soldiers, so Jewish, like why do we wear sidelocks? Because it used to be that the pagan Philistines would shave the sides of their heads. So like, we're going to do it. We're going to go out of our way to grow our hair there. It is just, they're so uniquely Jewish, and they're not only, shuckling and studying, which is not a bad thing to be studying Torah. That's like a big part of the reason we're here in the world, but they also have the sword in their hand and they're ready to fight. And there's a big conflict in this country around this issue, whether the ultra-Orthodox should have to fight. I even don't like that terminology. I don't have to. I didn't have to. I wanted to. It's not a netel. It's not like a yoke. It's a great opportunity in history. And so why were they afraid? Because there's this reactivity. There's this fear that they're going to become less religious and influenced by the secular Jews. But when you understand that my faith in God is so powerful, there's nothing that could ever make that waver, then you're going to be much more of an influencer than influencee. And so we're seeing this younger generation come up and saying, we want to fight. We want to be soldiers in the first Jewish army since the Hashmonaim. They're just literally coming back into it. It's very exciting.
That's right. No, I think it's amazing, especially for
they're going to be deployed soon, right?
Yeah.
I saw they're going to be going up on the Golan Heights probably.
Amazing. And one more amazing story also in Jerusalem. I think we should play the video for this one.
Well, first say what we're looking at so people know what they're seeing.
This is so after according to this this source here, after 1,955 years of silence, the song of the Levites was heard again on the Temple Mount. Let's watch this video.
צבד לא ידעתי אשמע הסירותי מסב השכבותי מסב כפיו מידות עוונה בצרה קראת מארצך אינך בסתרם עפונך על מי מריבה
I want to make sure, and whoever wants to can jump in here, but I just want to make sure our audience understands how historic this is. Like, this is not a small thing. Or you look like you were ready to tackle this.
Yeah, if you didn't get goosebumps watching that, it means that you just saw a few dudes singing a song. If you did get goosebumps, it's because you understood and you feel, even from an intuitive place, that this is not just men singing. This is the Levites singing on the Temple Mount is a trigger of the divine presence. It's a sign of the return of God's design. I just want to read directly the verses because it's important to understand. In the second book of Chronicles, the Levites sang and the glory of Hashem filled the house. When the Levites found their voice, the Shekhinah, divine presence, returned. Once they started to sing, Rav Kook said in a prophetic way, when the Holy Spirit begins to hover again over the nation, song returns before the temple is built. Right? This is the Levites singing. There's something about the spirit that brings to the Temple Mount that is just another sign of that light of redemption coming in such powerful ways that we really need to focus on that. The Temple Mount, how many did we have? 54,000 Jews have descended so far this year to the Temple Mount. That is more than ever before since Temple times. It's getting more and more and more. The consciousness and the awareness and the light is coming into the world. That's the story. That should have been the headline story.
Yeah.
Okay.
For 2,000 years, like literally 2,000 years, the Levites have not walked on the Temple Mount singing as the scriptures basically commanded that they would every single day. And now for the first time in 2,000 years.
I mean, it's amazing they were singing. Usually Jews can't open their mouths in prayer. Now they're singing.
Well, how many years
loud.
ago was it that, both of you guys have been arrested, right? Like how many years ago was that you were arrested simply for opening your mouth or prostrating yourselves?
No, it was more than 5 years ago. I don't think I was
less
married
than 10.
at the time.
Less than 10, right?
I think 9 years ago. 9-10 years ago.
9-10 years ago, you couldn't open your mouth in prayer.
I said the most simple prayer because there was a Jewish family that was just slaughtered. And I said this prayer, the Kaddish. And it was so interesting when I was assaulted by these Waqf Islamist police that the Israeli government allows and installed to be there. Usually when they restrain you or they arrest you, what do? They restrain your hands and your legs. They just put their dank, sweaty hands over my mouth. That's what they did. They didn't hold my hands back it was the words coming out of them because they're smart. Yep. They understood that nothing damages their cause, like the sanctification of the God of Israel from the mouths of the nation of Israel on the holiest Temple Mount and Mount Moriah. They understood that, but there's nothing that they can do to stop it. The wheels are turning and the light is shining. And that's what we have to remember. We are in for dark times ahead. There are dark times, but we can't forget while we're in the midst of them that the night is darkest before dawn. And there's a great light on the other side of this that is going to make all of this a small price to pay for the godliness that will be infused to the whole world.
And that is the perfect way to end this show. Because the darkness, Hanukkah is the only Jewish holiday where the mitzvah of the day is commanded specifically at night. It's like a unique holiday in that way. At nighttime, we light the candles. We light it right at the entrance to our home to light up our home, but also to light up the outside of the world. And what is the light? It's like when things look darkest, just like what you said, it was impossible odds. The Maccabees were up against impossible odds. Priests and farmers against the largest army empire in the world. So once again, Israel is being set up to stand up against impossible odds that will break the rules of history, that the likelihood and probabilities don't make sense. That is what Hanukkah is about to remember. It didn't make sense for slaves to defeat the Egyptian empire. It didn't make sense for the Maccabees to defeat the Greek Assyrian empire. And now Israel is like this tiny country inviting nation states to put their military inside our land. How are the Jews going to survive? And that's the stage that's being set for the light to shine.
Right. I just want to say, because we have a couple minutes left, the prophets liken Israel to the olive tree, to the olive. And during times like this, really since October 7th, it's come to a head that we have been going through such crushing trauma. I mean, our vision of what we want to do with our farm is from the book of Jeremiah. Am sride charev matzachen bamidbar. The nation who survived the sword, the edge of the sword, will find grace in the desert. Right? We're a nation to some degree that has post-traumatic stress disorder. My 5-year-old daughter just told me that she had this dream that this huge, massive boulder was coming down to run us over. We all had to run into the safe room. Like, it's so clear what this is all about, right? And so why is all of this happening to us? Because we are like the olive, as the prophets say. And when does that precious, fine olive oil that is brought to the holy temple for that eternal light to shine come out of us? When we're crushed the most. And God is crushing us right now, but it's bringing the best out of us, and it's making us who we need to be.
That's right. Guys, let us know if you're celebrating Hanukkah. Next week starts Hanukkah, 8 days, 8 lights shining brightly from the land of Israel. Beautiful story, especially for the times that we're in as the darkness gets darker. Like Jeremy, you were saying, it's the holiday that's celebrated at night, and every single day of Hanukkah, our family's favorite thing to do is to go to Jerusalem during one of the last nights of Hanukkah right at dusk, because you walk around in the old city and every single window and doorstep is illuminated by sometimes dozens of Hanukkahs, menorahs in the doorsteps and the windows. And it's just my favorite thing ever to see so much light, just like stars just shining out from the holy city of Jerusalem. So guys, let us know if you're celebrating Hanukkah. Even if you don't celebrate Hanukkah, like, go on Amazon and order, or it's called a Hanukkah. Like you can order one and you can just light the Hanukkah candles. It'll probably
put it in that window.
Probably cost you $20.
If I could just issue an invitation also. We are having, the Land of Israel Fellowship. We're doing an open session.
Nice.
Open session on the first night of Hanukkah. So if you're interested, come to thelandofisrael.com and you could sign up and be a part of this session. Because what do we say? What's the blessing? Bayamim ehem. In those days and in these times.
That's right.
Right? The Bible is not a story that happened. It's a story that is constantly happening. And I believe the miracles we're about to experience are going to far eclipse even the miracles of Hanukkah. So hang tight, stay tuned. The God of Israel is going to bring some great things into the world.
That's right. I would just encourage our audience, go to thelandofisrael.com and we'll put a link in the description below. Join we're talking Sunday night, right? Before this coming Sunday night, join the Land of Israel Fellowship so you can join the open fellowship they're going to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah with Jeremy and Ari and the rest of the Land of Israel.
We're working on the website right now.
Fellowship.
Okay, so there's info at the Land of Israel. You can email me, Ari at the Land of Israel, even better.
You just
Jeremy,
put your email.
He'll actually answer you. Jeremy at thelandofisrael.com.
There you go. Email these guys. We'll put a link down below. You guys make sure to join the fellowship. We would love it if you guys would do that and celebrate Hanukkah. Get yourself a Hanukkah, light the candles, and make sure to subscribe. We're about to hit 400,000 subscribers. We'd love to do that before the end of the year. So thank you guys for being with us. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in the Land of Israel. We'll be back soon here at The Israel Guys.